Hello everyone. As promised, I have recorded the presentation that I delivered during our first support group. What I'm not doing is uploading any of the conversation that actually took place in the first support group, and that's simply because it was a chance for people to really build some trust with each other, and I don't think it's fair that I then share that widely outside the group at this stage. That's not to say that moving forward the full discussion won't be shared, but I just thought for the first one it was more of a building relationships process, and therefore I wanted to keep that private with regards to the group that actually attended. For those of you who didn't attend, this is the presentation that was covered, and this is what led to an awful lot of the questions and conversations that took place after. If you have any questions with regards to the presentation you're going to be able to see now, feel free to send those questions to me, and what I will do on Friday is a live Q&A where I answer all of your questions and give you any extra information if you need it. So the first session was very much about a very specific topic that I'll take you through now. But for those who don't know me very well, it makes sense to give a bit more of an introduction to why I'm doing this. So my name is Kim Rutherford, and I am a psychotherapist. I'm a practicing psychotherapist. I have my own practice, a face-to-face practice based in Liverpool, and I also provide online support as well. So I help people on a one-to-one basis with things such as mental health and mental well-being. So anxiety, stress management, depression, anything that falls under that bracket, and also people who are trying to either recover from mental health issues or prevent mental health issues, and that's where the mental well-being element comes in. I work with an awful lot of people who are going through major life changes, major life transitions, and who find themselves at a crossroads in life and just need some support in working out the direction that they're all going into. I am not a bariatric specialist with regards to the surgery, but I am going through this process myself. What I do specialise in is the changing of thought patterns, emotional regulation, and change in behaviours. And all of those three things are probably the core tools that anybody would need in order to manage the psychological journey that is attached to a bariatric process. Hence why the skill set I've got from my professional life are very useful with regards to what we are all going through now. So as I said, I'm going through this process myself. I'm currently on LRD, and I will be having my surgery on the 27th of November. So I'm very much at the early stages, and therefore I will be learning as much from you guys who are further along the process. So it's a share, this whole process from my perspective is a sharing of information, knowledge, experience, and skill set. So without further ado, I'm going to just jump into it and go through everything that I've got here. As I said, if you're watching this, if you write down any questions that you might have, you can send them to me either in the Facebook group or feel free to send them to me privately. I will collate all of those questions and I will answer all of those questions in a Q&A on Friday, which you're welcome to join, and I will put all the details in the Facebook group a little bit later on. But for now, I hope you're sitting comfortably with either a shake, a cup of tea if you're lucky enough, some water, or whatever is getting you through today. So, Bariatric Support Group Day 1, Session 1. So, what I wanted to cover with you all in this session is understanding mindsets, understanding how the brain triggers your food issues, having some understanding about how stress triggers your food issues. I want to take you through what 8 Whys is and how it links to those triggers. And I want to explain to you how 8 Whys therapy can help with your bariatric support through looking at it with a past, present, future model, as well as the emotions, thinking, and behavior model. So the first thing you really need to think about is your mind. When it comes to psychology, everything is based on how the mind works. Now, your mind is an amazingly huge database, and it's split into 3 major files. And the files that it's split into is your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your unconscious mind. Now, from the moment you are born, your memory, your mind, your brain captures every single experience you have ever had, right from the moment you come out of the womb until your dying day. It captures everything. It doesn't miss a trick. And therefore it does from capturing everything. It then has to move them, has to store that information in a way that you can still use it, but it doesn't clog all of your mind all the time. And it filters it through these three areas. So your conscious mind is the area of mind where you do a lot of your learning and your everyday function that you have to be present with. Your subconscious mind is where you house all of the memories that you can access in order to help you to navigate and make decisions in the life you're living. And your unconscious mind is those much, much deeper rooted parts of you that have developed over time. You don't need to access them anymore, but they need to sit behind the scenes, keeping everything going forward. So, for example, to give you some idea of how this whole process works, once upon a time, you didn't know how to breathe, because when you were in the womb, you didn't need to breathe. Then what's happened is you've got to a certain stage, you're coming out of the womb, and you've got to learn how to breathe. And what a doctor tends to do is prod you or just spank you slightly to shock you into taking that very first breath. And it's that shock factor that forces your conscious mind to go, okay, I need to start doing something with this now. And it's in that first instant that consciously, for those first few minutes, you learn how to breathe. You learn how to manage your breathing. You learn how to regulate your breathing. You learn how to get the breath in order to feel comfortable. And eventually over time, that experience and that memory with regards to your breathing has filtered down from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind and down into your conscious mind. So you don't remember how you breathe anymore, you just do it. But because I'm talking about breathing, and if I ask you to think about your breathing right now, what happens is it brings that thought process and it brings the breathing up, and you start to think of it consciously. And now it feels a little bit more uncomfortable because you're taking it back to that learning phase again, and it's not comfortable. So just take a couple of deep breaths in, it'll regulate, and we'll move forward with it. But another experience that demonstrates to you how you can learn something and forget about it is if you are a driver, for example. When you drive or learn to drive, excuse me, you learn to drive in your conscious mind, and you remember your 10 to 2, and you remember all of your bits and pieces as well. Excuse me. And then eventually you start just doing it out of muscle memory. So have a think of the last time you had to drive anywhere. When you drove anywhere, did you remember exactly how you got there? Did you have to use your sat nav? Or did you just do it because you've done that journey so many times? Have you ever experienced just turning up somewhere and going, crikey, I don't even remember how I drove here? If that's the case, that's because when you learnt to drive, excuse me, you learnt to drive in your conscious mind, then eventually it becomes like muscle memory. You know how to get there, you know how to move through it, you're moving through the car as if it's another part of you because it's gone into your subconscious mind. But if you ever have an issue like a car crash or anything like that, then what happens is you kind of go back into the conscious mind element, you start to remember how to do everything properly, and it's almost like you relearn everything just to get your confidence back up there. And that's how your mind works. So with regards to your conscious mind, this is where all the accessible and available information is. This is where your willpower sits. It's where your decision-making and logical thinking and initial learning sits. The reason I've got those highlighted in red is because I want to make it quite clear about willpower for start. A lot of people think that willpower is this innate built-in part of us. And if we don't have it, then there's something wrong with us as an individual. But it's not accurate. Willpower is something we create. We have to use all of the tools that are sitting in our subconscious. We need to be able to bring them up, and we have to make willpower a very conscious decision. When it comes to weight loss and willpower, the only way willpower works is by living in the moment and making conscious decisions every moment of every day with regards to what your weight loss process is. And so willpower is not something that is innate in all of us. And therefore, you're not a failure if you don't have strong willpower. You've just not yet made it a conscious part of your everyday. Within your conscious mind, though, is where you make all your decisions and the logical thinking processes. And that relates an awful lot to your bariatric process, because most of you would take a long time to make this decision, which means you've gone through the initial emotional reason for it, and then you start to weigh up all the logical reasons for it, such as, does it fit in with my lifestyle? Can I live like this? When's the best time to have it? So consciously, you have definitely made your decisions and used it logically. And now it's about, if you haven't done so already, using your conscious mind to build that willpower and get to where you want to get on this journey. With regards to your subconscious mind, everything here is much deeper and it's less accessible. It's where your reoccurring thoughts are, your behaviors, your habits, your feelings, and your recent memories. When you have dreams, the visuals that you see in your dreams come from your subconscious mind. It's your subconscious using your own memory to either help you process things or tell you something. When it comes to the weight loss journey, the bariatric journey, the elements of your subconscious mind that you need to be really aware of are your behaviors, your habits, and your feelings, because they're what we're probably going to need to change. Excuse me. You're also probably going to need to think about those reoccurring thoughts that are holding you back. So just take a moment to think about what those thoughts actually might be. Then we move on to our unconscious mind. Now, our unconscious mind is where all our early childhood memories, beliefs, and habits are. All the traumatic events, the phobias, the addictions, any information that we use to resist change or override any other mind. And this is where you are in your full life. The reality of obesity is that it's not something that happens in the moment. It's something that usually develops over time. There's a huge difference between putting on weight and entering into the obesity circle. And it tends to be really deep-rooted childhood memories, belief systems, habits about ourselves that other people have put upon us, that we've internalized for ourselves. And so that's why you can't change your thinking with regards to your weight loss and your bariatric journey overnight, because it has taken you your entire lifetime to use all of these things that you've experienced to develop the mindset that led to obesity in the first place. Therefore, it just takes some conscious effort and some time to unpick it and be able to then get back to a stage where you're back in control of it and you're no longer being driven by those earlier memories, those earlier beliefs, and those earlier habits. It's about unlearning everything you've learnt that got you into this state that made you unhappy and healthy. And your mind is the number one tool for getting you through this process. But I want you to think about how the mind triggers. So we always get triggered, and that's what leads to this addiction to food or this need for food or the stress that comes with it. So I want you to try and explain to you how this works with mind and triggers. So look at your gun there on the screen. The gun represents your mind. It's a big carcass, it's solid, and it holds everything in it. The bullets for a gun represent your past memories and all of your past experiences. So like I said, everything that you've ever experienced has been shared in all of those different folders within your mind, and each one of them is represented by a single bullet, multiple bullets. The trigger on the gun represents the current life challenges that you will experience. Life will always happen. It will always throw new events at you. And so we're constantly experiencing things that could trigger. So your mind is always there. It's housed with lots of bullets, and different life events will create different triggers for us. When you put all of those three together, you pull the trigger, the bullet flies out, you get your big bang. And the bang represents the stress that comes from linking together the mind, the life events, and all of those past experiences. So the gun, the trigger, and the bullets. And when that big bang goes off, we're left with lots of stress. And that stress is something that we have to learn to cope with. food is the common coping mechanism for people like us, people who've been obese. And therefore we have to find ways of creating new coping mechanisms for that stress other than food. And that can be one of the most difficult parts of the bariatric process. Now, I wanted to show you some of the science of it so you understand really what's happening to your brain, because this isn't about you as an individual being a failure in any way, shape or form. This is about your simplest biological processes working against you in some ways, using a system that is primal. It's a part of every single one of us, and it links to our survival system. So this is just about you being a human being and all of your systems working the way they're supposed to, but not necessarily working in a way that's best for you at the moment. What we want to be able to do in this process is slightly change them so that they work in a much better way for you. So with regards to the brain, right at the front of the head there, just behind, right at the front, just behind the forehead, you've got your prefrontal cortex. Now this is where you do all of your thinking and all your conscious elements. And this is the part that literally helps navigate you through every moment of every single day. But it can't work on its own. It works with its best buddy. And its best buddy lives in the limbic part of the brain, which is right in the middle. And it's where the hippocampus is housed. Your hippocampus is where that big database of memory and experiences is kept. And on a day-to-day basis, what happens is your prefrontal cortex is taking in all of the stimulus around it. And it's taking in that stimulus and it's asking questions of, how do I manage this? How do I do that? So for example, you might walk to a door and your prefrontal cortex needs to know how to open the door to get you out of it. So it sends a message to the hippocampus and says, how do I open this door? The hippocampus looks through the memory banks, finds the most recent or the strongest memory of when you've been able to open a door. It sends that image back to the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex is then able to make the body maneuver in order to reenact what it's just seen. Therefore, you're able to walk through a door. Now, this is great. And what happens is we do this all the time. And to give you an example of this, if I say the word elephant to you now, what has just happened is you've just got an image of an elephant in your mind, and everybody's image will be different because everybody has got an image specific to their experience. So if you can imagine, this is happening millions of times a day, and it works brilliantly. And most of the time it's not affecting you, it's just happening. But sometimes some of those memories and those experiences are connected to high levels of emotion, and especially those that are more traumatic emotions. And the stronger the memory and the stronger the emotion together makes it a much stronger piece of equipment for the hippocampus to get hold of. So for example, if you were to get to the stage where you're in front of a door, and actually the last time you were in front of a door, there was no handle and your only way to get out of it was to kick it down, your initial instinct could go to the hippocampus going, you've got to kick it down. What then happens is this part of the brain, the amygdala, starts to recognize that you're starting to feel in danger because it's brought up a memory that links to you not feeling safe. Now what happens is the amygdala sets off the survival system, and it's that survival system that leads us into incredible levels of stress. It releases cortisol into the system, it increases all of your adrenaline in the system, and that's when you start to feel those highly anxious palpitations and all of the wonderful symptoms and responses that come from anxiety and stress. And that's all caused by the amygdala. So in order to really manage stress in life, we have to either manage the amygdala and be able to switch the amygdala off, or we need to know which memories within our hippocampus are triggering us the most and be able to work through those in order to remove, in theory, remove the bullet from the gun in the first place. So the way that it works is every single day you're walking around, there's lots of external stimulus, and that comes through your visual cortex. That sends messages to your prefrontal cortex via neurotransmitters. And if that process works great, it just goes between the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. But if your brain or your hippocampus or your mind ever feel like you're going into danger, then that's when it switches on the amygdala, and that's when you get those unpleasant behavioral and physiological responses that we tend to then find unhealthy ways to cope with. And stress is the number one factor, and stress is the number one factor for all of us every single day, because stress is something that will constantly happen to us, whether we're a bariatric patient or not. We're always coping with the stress of life. Just as a bariatric patient, we've also got the stress of the surgery and the process as well. Now, as a human, we're all built for stress, and we've all got a limited amount that we can handle. And what we've got to be aware of is making sure the stress levels don't go any higher. So think of it as a bathtub. You're sat in the bath and the water is on all the time, because just like life, you can't switch it off, it keeps coming at you. Now, because on that bathtub, we've got the filter just underneath the tap, if the water rises too high, the filter lets it go and it stops the water from coming over the bathtub. And you sit there lounging around with your bubbles on and your face mask, having a great time. But if that filter becomes blocked, or the water's coming in too fast and the filter can't cope, then actually what happens is the water comes higher and higher and higher over the filter. It overflows the bathtub. It then goes onto the floor, damages the floor, and it keeps happening. Then the water will then ruin the bathroom. It goes through the bathroom floor, and then it starts to affect all the other areas of your home as well. And that is exactly what happens with stress if you don't learn to manage it and find coping mechanisms that are healthy for you. It will build up and build up and build up. It becomes so overwhelming that it starts to take over all of these other areas. And because then you're in this stress state and you just want it to end, we find unhealthy ways to cope with it. So it's really important that you understand that stress is always going to keep coming. So learning to manage it is crucial for your overall wellness and well-being anyway. If you don't find ways of letting it out, it's going to affect everything you do. And if you don't develop and maintain good levels of wellness, it could lead to mental health issues and physical health issues. And the number one physical health issue of stress is obesity. Now, for those of us who have led the obese life for a long time, it is usually caused by a dysfunctional stress cycle. So to give you some idea how this works, a life event happens. So it could be that you've had a really bad day at work. And that bad day at work triggers a negative thinking process. It could be that you're not good at your job, or your boss hates you, or nobody likes you, or they're going to fire you. All of these crazy things that our brain takes us through when we start to process. That negative thinking process leads to a bunch of negative feelings. So now we feel really bad about ourselves. We're really struggling with our confidence. We're probably being really horrible to ourselves. We might be feeling anxious. We might be feeling sick. But ultimately, we feel like crap because it's been triggered by our negative thinking. Those negative feelings then leads to a bunch of physical symptoms. It might be palpitations. It might be nausea. It might be tension in our shoulders. But ultimately, we feel really rubbish and we want that feeling to go away. So we create something that's called a self-defeating behavior, a behavior that makes us feel comfortable and is going to take away all of that horrible feeling. And for many of us, that self-defeating behavior is food. Now, in the moment, for the first 10 minutes, it works and it cuts this cycle off and we feel great. But with about 20 minutes to go, it takes us to the next life event, because now we feel guilty. And because we feel guilty, now we start thinking differently about ourselves, and those negative feelings get worse and those physical symptoms get worse, and we just want to end it. But now your brain and that hippocampus and prefrontal cortex know what to do. Prefrontal cortex says to the hippocampus, what do I do when I feel this bad? Hippocampus looks at your memory banks, goes, well, actually, the last time you ate that KFC, you felt really good and it stopped you feeling like this. Why not do that again? You go, yeah, brilliant idea. I'll do that. Let's have the KFC. And that cycle continues over and over and over again, because we create a new set of memories linked to all of these highly negative emotions, which are really strong. And so that becomes a habit that then leads to really major health issues for us. And the effects of all that on the body comes from stress. And stress affects us in horrific ways. It affects our brain and nerve system, our hearts, our stomach, pancreas, intestines, reproductive organs. But one of the big ways it affects us with regards to obesity is the cortisol in the system. Stress triggers an awful lot of cortisol. That cortisol leads to high levels of insulin. So unused cortisol leads to high levels of insulin, and high levels of insulin lead to fat, and therefore too much cortisol leads to fat, meaning weight increase. And so an awful lot of people's obesity isn't necessarily just the food they are eating. It is also a lot of the cortisol that is caused from an incredibly stressful life. Hence, you need to identify stress management tools that also boost your wellness. Bariatric surgery itself forces us into all 4 categories of stress. Those 4 categories of symptoms are our psychological symptoms, our physical symptoms, our emotional symptoms, and our behavioral symptoms. So because bariatric surgery triggers all of that for us, it puts us through a really turbulent journey. The outcomes are great and we know what we're all working towards, but it doesn't mean the journey itself is going to be easy, because we might lose the weight, but it might take a little bit more time for our mind to work with us on that process. So therefore, the journey is both physically and mentally demanding, and we need to learn to counteract it before it gets to a stage where it puts us back in that dysfunctional stress cycle, and all of our hard work is gone when we stretch things and we start to put the weight back on again. So it's all about mental well-being. And mental well-being is about your own thoughts and feelings and how you're able to cope with the challenges of everyday life. Weight loss and weight sustainment rely on strong mental well-being. And ultimately, stress management leads to having good mental well-being, meaning ultimately that you'll be more confident in yourself. You will have a sense of purpose in what you are doing. You'll be able to cope with the everyday challenges and change that come with this process. You'll become more productive at home and at work, and you can live your life exactly as you want because you will feel like you are in control of the situation. Now, for me personally, I have struggled with my weight all of my life. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I struggled with my mental health really, really badly as well. My mental health at the time, I suffered with work-related stress, which led to extreme burnout. It led to severe anxiety disorder and health anxiety disorder. I then had depression, and that ultimately led to agoraphobia. So I experienced the full package, and again, as a fat person as well. So that wasn't helping because my support system was food. That's all I had. And I wasn't leaving the house. So it was all takeaway, takeaway, takeaway. So at that time, in order to do my own recovery, I really had to understand what was creating it, what was affecting me so that I was in this really low place. And it's not just the medication that can help you. If you've ever suffered with mental health issues, medication supports you. It gives you the moment in your mind to be able to actually do the healing part. So what I ended up developing, and this is what I use within my own practice now, it's what I've written my book about and all of that kind of stuff. And it's called the 8 Whys Wellness Program, and it's an 8 Whys therapy process. And it's based on 4 core dimensions with 2 wellness areas in each. So dimension 1 is the foundation dimension. And this is where our emotional wellness and our physical wellness sits. So this is the concept of having a healthy mind and a healthy body. Our emotional wellness is about our ability to manage and cope with our emotions on a day-to-day basis. So this is where we really start to learn to cope with the emotions that are triggering us in an awful lot of ways. Our physical wellness is about how we manage our everyday health and well-being. So this is things like with regards to our water intake, our nutrition, our exercise, our sleep patterns, and making sure we maintain our health checks. Our emotional wellness is all about our internal thinking processes and how they trigger our emotions, what emotions we are experiencing, how we cope with those emotions, and how we work through those emotions. So together they create a really strong foundation for us. But when we have that strong foundation, we're then able to go to the next level. And the next level is the internal dimension. Now, our internal dimension consists of our spiritual wellness. And to be honest, our spiritual wellness is the area of our life that will go through the most change on a bariatric process. And that's because this is about who we are, and who we are changes. Who we are has to change, otherwise we can't maintain all of the health changes that we need to do. So this is about who we are, what our beliefs are, what our values are, what our self-esteem is like, what our thinking about ourselves and who we are is like, and if we like ourselves. And it's a core part of what we have to do now moving forward. But also is intellectual wellness. And intellectual wellness is based on that concept is that we are intelligent creatures. We need to keep learning. We need to stay stimulated. And one of the things that leaves us in our obesity is our comfort zone. And so we have to learn new things that make us feel confident enough to step out of our comfort zone. And so a big part of the bariatric journey is these four: the foundation dimension and the internal dimension, creating a really strong mind and a really healthy body, and then understanding ourselves well enough and what we need to learn and how to stimulate ourselves so that we can move out of our comfort zone into the new us and into the new world and new life we have to create. When we've done that, we are now on a personal level at a much stronger position to do the next level, which is the external dimension. The external dimension consists of your environmental wellness. And this is about spending time and having access to the environments that are healthiest for you, whether that be where you do your exercise, where you spend the most of your time, or the safe spaces that you create in your life for rest and relaxation. For instance, with bariatric, this might be how your kitchen is set up. Do you have somewhere to store your food in the office? Do you have the tools that you need to get you through all of the stages of the bariatric journey? And then you've got your social wellness. And this is about, do you have the support systems that you need to get you through this process? Do you have the support systems in order for you to have a really fulfilling life? And sometimes we have to look at this and go, well, actually, some of the people in my life are holding me back. We might have to distance ourselves from them. Or sometimes we might have to connect with new people who do understand us, like through our Facebook group and the other Facebook groups, and also through what is now going to be a weekly group session. So this is the external dimension. We need to get that right. And then the final stage is the lifestyle dimension. This is about our financial wellness and knowing that we feel safe and secure with our finances, and our occupational wellness, knowing that we're in a job that suits the life we want to live and who we are as a person, and actually brings all of this together. And your bariatric journey will affect every single part of this process. And there are different parts of the bariatric journey are going to trigger different parts of your wellness. And so it's really important to be mindful and to stay conscious in balancing and maintaining good levels of wellness in all of the 8 areas. And to do that, you need to reduce your stress. And if you reduce your stress, then less food is needed to cope with it, giving you the time to develop the new skills, the new thinking processes, and the new behavioral patterns that are going to lead to your success. Now, the thing is, all of these are connected. So if you experience a life event that triggers any of them, so let's take emotional wellness into play. So say, for example, you stand on the scales and you put on a pound, or you haven't lost anything, and it makes you feel crap. Let's be honest, we've all been there. We become disappointed in ourselves, and it triggers those emotions. Because it's triggered those emotions, it then, and all of these different elements connect to each other, your emotional wellness then triggers your physical wellness. So what you now do is what you're thinking and how you're feeling now trigger how you're acting and responding, and you get that physiological response. So suddenly you might not feel so great, or you're a bit more tired now, so you don't want to go and do your exercise for the day. It triggers that thinking process about ourselves, and we start to feel bad about ourselves again, like we're failing, and it's just a repeat of everything that's gone wrong before. So it makes us want to step back into our comfort zone, makes us want to start, oh, there's no point dieting today, then it's clearly not working for me, I might as well have that KFC again. You might now be a bit angry, and so that anger can now be projected onto the people in your life, or you're upset, you're disappointed, so you withdraw from the people in your life. So that affects your social wellness. This might make you feel that actually being at home isn't a safe space for you. So you might be finding that I want to go and spend time anywhere else. I just want to get out of the house because I don't want to be here anymore. So it could just mean that your overall environmental wellness is now affected as well, because it just feels icky to you and you want to get out of there. It can affect how you are in work, because the second that we start to have those thinking thoughts about us, all those things that make us feel worse about ourselves, it starts to affect us in the workplace. It affects our productivity. We start looking at other things and questioning other parts of our life. And because work is such a dominant place, it's where we start to notice the stress comes in a lot more. And it can affect us financially, because when we feel low, we want to pick me up, and that pick me up usually comes at a financial cost. Now, that is just one example of how when one of those 8 areas gets triggered through an experience that we have, it then affects all of the others. But as I said, they're all connected. So if one of them is linked to all the others, then every one of them is also linked to all the others. And so what happens is the more stress you experience and the more of those unhelpful experiences you're having, it comes to this level of chaos, which leads to you feeling lethargic and tired all the time, feeling emotionally drained and burnt out. You can become highly emotional, poor cognitive function. You can't make decisions properly, you get a foggy brain feeling. You can start to feel anxious about things and not even know why you're feeling anxious. It can lead to low mood and depression. You can start to make really unhealthy decisions, such as food, and bad decisions and bad old habits, and it can really affect your self-esteem and your confidence. If you think about COVID itself, COVID actually impacted every single one of these. So on top of the regular stress that you were feeling in life, COVID then kicked in as well, which triggered everything even more. So if you think about normal life and COVID and now a bariatric journey, that is a lot of stress. And if you don't learn to manage it all, it becomes really, really dangerous. And that danger means poor mental health, poor mental well-being, and you moving towards old habits that caused your obesity, and let's be realistic, poor health and unhappiness as well. So what I recommend is trying to use these 8 areas to refocus you, and if you can build the wellness up in these areas, you will start to manage your bariatric process and journey much better. So with regards to your emotional wellness, it's about tracking and understanding your emotions. Those of us who are emotional eaters are hiding from our emotions. What we're actually doing is eating them so we don't have to feel them. And it's about allowing ourselves to feel them, because they're telling us something that we need to learn. They're trying to explain to us when things aren't right for us. So we need to learn them and we need to understand them. With regards to our physical wellness, it's about creating a healthy routine that incorporates good sleep, the correct amount of water and liquids and fluids for hydration, the correct nutrition. It's not about going on a diet like we've done before, but it is about having that balance in our nutrition so we stay healthy, making sure we've got good mobility in our lives as well as exercise. So it's remembering they're 2 different things, and it's making sure that we are fully aware of how our bodies are feeling so we can keep up to date with our health checks. With regards to our spiritual wellness, it's about making changes to the negative thinking processes, really getting to know ourselves again and letting those negative processes from the past go. It's almost like reintroducing ourselves to who we are today and letting all of the previous thoughts and all those previous negative thinking and negative feelings about ourselves move on. When it comes to our intellectual wellness, we need to stretch our comfort zones. And the way we do that is by throwing ourselves into a new wellness project, ourselves, making us our priority, and learning everything we need to do to make sure that we are fully functioning and maintaining really good health moving forward. With regards to our environmental wellness, is spending time outdoors because it's a healthy space for us. But it's also about creating a safe space at home and at work. So that might mean uncluttering the space. That might mean changing your wardrobe so all of your new fabulous thin clothes are standing out. It might mean being brave enough to get rid of the old clothes that you will never need anymore. It also might mean changing things in your kitchen and making your kitchen work better for you for the bariatric process. With regards to your social wellness, it's looking about reducing time with people who bring too much stress and spending more time with people who make you feel positive. The great feedback we had from the session last night was how positive people came away feeling that they could really move forward in a better and happier way. So it's about spending time with people who support you and build you up and understand you, and reduce the time with the people who don't. When it comes to money, it's about investing in the tools that genuinely help you, not getting trapped in that diet spending of before, hoping that someone's going to help you or something's going to work. The bariatric process will work. So invest in the tools that help you stay on it. And then it's about managing your work stress and preparing your food for work, and not making work an obstacle for the process, but making work a part of the process. And that's how the 8 Whys therapy approach would start with this. And the key to this would be about setting your own goals and setting your own action plan to help you manage each of these areas for yourself, which I'm hoping I'm going to show you how to do over the coming weeks. And one of the biggest parts of it is being able to change this cognitive behavioral process that takes place inside of us. So it's all about our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, and our physical sensations. So what we think affects how we act. What we feel affects how we think and act. What we do affects how we think and feel. And what we think, feel, and how we act creates the physical sensation that makes us think, feel, and act. Now, what we need to be able to do is we need to actively change our thinking processes so they work better for us and stop holding us back. We need to actively manage the emotions we feel, which means not hiding from them, not running from them, and not feeling guilty about them. We need to actively change our behaviors, actually make physical changes in our lives with regards to the way we do things. And if actively changing, or if we do commit to actively changing all the other areas, then naturally our physical sensations will change as well, because that is how you break the cycle. So to lose weight and to change our lives and maintain a healthy weight with regards to the bariatric journey, we need to allow ourselves to heal from the past. So we need to do that piece of work that makes us look backwards. We need to manage the present. So we need to really start looking at how do we cope with everyday life and the things that are triggering us. And we then need to learn from all of that to create a better future. So create better habits, create better thought process, create better coping focus and mechanisms, so that our future is stronger for us because we're in a better position to control it. So to do all this, we need to understand our thinking, our feeling, and our behavioral patterns. We need to manage stress effectively in everyday life, and we need to be able to set realistic goals and realistic actions to meet those goals. How do we do all of this? We improve our wellness using 8 Whys, as I've shown you, and we use our cognitive function with tangible activities to do everything. So I call this living the 8 Whys way, because ultimately this is a tool that you can use for every single part of your life. Whenever something major happens, whether that be the bariatric journey, if you're getting married, if you're getting divorced, if you've got issues with friends or family, if your job is getting you down, if you're at a crossroads, if you're having a midlife crisis, whatever it is, you can actually map against this model to help you manage it. So I know for me personally, when it comes to my weight issues, it's emotionally led. I have strong emotional connections to food that I need to break, and diet alone won't do that. But I know that in order to keep my body healthy, I have to follow a very specific nutritional plan. I need to do the exercise, and I need to not go back to the eating habits or eat the foods that created a lot of my problem in the first place. I need to reduce any of the issues around low self-esteem, and I need to boost my confidence. I need to get a better perspective of who I am and how strong I am and how able I am to do this process. I need to be willing to step outside of my comfort zone and try new things, which is scary, and that's scary for all of us. I know that means I have to tailor how I work, because my job is now going to have to incorporate a wellness program and a wellness process. That means that I incorporate more exercise into my everyday. I make sure I have the time to eat and drink, which I don't make time for now. I know that I need to create safer environments for myself. I need to make sure that my home doesn't have all of the things that trigger the stress, or it doesn't have all the food that I would use. Instead, I create a healthier space and therefore a safer space at home for me. But I need to do that at work as well. And I know for me personally, spending time in the outdoors, specifically in green areas or near water, are really therapeutic for me. So I need to be able to do that more often. I needed this group. I know I need this group just as much as many of you do, because I need to surround myself with people who understand my process, who I know who aren't going to judge me. And there's lots of people in our outdoor world, our real world, that will tell us they don't judge us, but we know they are. We can sense that they are. And they just don't understand us, and they don't understand where we've come from and what we're doing. So I know I need a social system that does. And that's why I'm so grateful for you guys doing this. And then financially, I know for me it's about investing in the tools that work for me, that are going to help me with this process. Hence I've got myself a set of scales that doesn't just tell me what I weigh, but tells me about the other parts of me, so I get those other goals hitting as well. So it will tell me my BMI as I'm going, but most importantly for me is fat content. I don't care about weight, I care about losing the fats. My weight comes from my organs and my blood as well as my fats, but I just want to lose the fats, and my scales tell me that. So I'm buying and I'm investing in things that help me along this process, and I'm no longer spending my money on the things that can't help me, such as lots of takeaways or lots of cheap clothes, because I know I'm going to throw them away because they're not going to fit in a month's time. I'm not going to do all of that. I'm investing nice things in myself, because you know what, I'm worth it. I am worth investing in, just like you are worth investing in. So that is the 8 Whys model and how you can manage your bariatric process against all of it. Okay. Now, with regards to the overall process, and this is not me saying that you have to do these, but it's kind of me proving to you that this does exist. And I do this with my clients, and many other therapists use it as well. There you go, proof. That is my book, 8 Wise Ways to a Healthier, Happier Mind. And it actually shows you how, it goes into detail about every element of 8 Wise in lots more detail, with lots of tools, lots of activities, etc., etc. So that's available if you want it. As I said, you don't have to. This is not mandatory to do what I'm doing. You do not need it. I'm going to take you through elements of it. It's just for those of you who might want a little bit more information. I've also created the 12-week journal that goes with it. So again, this is just a journal that you can write in for 12 weeks that helps you manage those 8 elements. And also, I've now also created the 12-week planner. This is how I'm going to manage myself. Again, this is not me saying you have to do this. You do not need to buy these if you don't want to. But these are tools that are out there available to you to help you manage your overall psychology whilst you're going through what I call a major wellness change. Because that's what it really is. The bariatric journey is just us becoming more well and healthy. And that's the tools that I created for other people to use. Again, you do not have to buy them. You do not have to buy them. I'm going to give you all of this service for free in this group anyway. But if you do want those extra tools, please do not buy them off of places like Amazon and things like that. Come to me and I will get you a VIP discount on all of them and get them direct to you that way. I don't want you spending excess money by going through the big boys who charge an awful lot for these things. But again, you don't have to have them if you don't want them. So that's session 1, and it's about laying down the groundwork, getting you to understand where you need to think and where you need to focus. What I am going to do is I'm going to upload some worksheets into the Facebook group that are going to help you with some of these elements as well. So I'll upload them, I'll tell you how you can use them, and then you can work through them at your own pace whenever you want to. And if you don't want to, you don't have to, it's absolutely fine. My plan with these sessions is to do and have this session available every Monday at 8 p.m. It will be recorded and uploaded every single Tuesday. If throughout the week any questions come up with regards to what was covered on a Monday or anything that you're going through in your everyday life anyway with regards to this process, send them through to me for a Thursday. What will happen is I will collate them, and on a Friday I will do a live Q&A with regards to those questions. Now, also put your questions with regards to the bariatric process as well, such as the food element and all the things you might want to know. It doesn't have to be just the psychological stuff. And that's because we've got some really experienced people in this group, people at different stages on the process. And so we've got so much experience we can learn from each other. So if I can't answer the question, I promise you there will be someone else in the group who can, and we throw it out to them and we will get you the answers that you need. So that is it. Every Monday we're going to do this using exactly the same Zoom that we used this time round. I will record everyone and upload them on a Monday. And this will have every Monday with something similar. I will, I guess you can call it, teach you something and provide you with some tools that can help you. And then we can help each other along the process after that as well. So any questions, any queries, get in touch. I hope you're all doing well, and genuinely thank you so much for being a part of this group. It means an awful lot to me. It's helping me an awful lot with my process, and I know just from talking to a few people last night how much it's helping them as well. So thank you very much, and I will see you on Friday, and I will hope to chat with you all again next Monday. I'm going to head off now and do day 9 of LRD, so off on my banana shake. Take care all, see you soon. Bye.